This is the Subluminous Stream, Episode 5, recorded on November 8th, 2023. Hey, welcome to the Subluminous Stream. I'm JD.
I'm TJ.
And we're super excited for the show today. I feel like, we didn't skip a week or anything, right?
Me and Malia, my wife, were just talking about that. It was like, did we miss a couple of shows? It seems like weeks.
I think it's because we did so much stuff for Halloween.
Yeah.
It seems like we're a lot further away from Halloween than I remember. But so I guess we're rolling back around to error correction today, so that's going to be the read.
Check
and
we're good.
Yeah, so we're going to be reading from error correction, and this will be second chapter. So we've read
the
three chapters from Cardinal Point. 2 chapters, something like that. Yeah,
we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, so that was sort of our Halloween extravaganza, was pushing Cardinal Point and Vela.
And now we're back to business.
Yeah, now we're back. This if you didn't hear the first episode with error correction, that's our sci-fi cyberpunk book that's kind of got a little bit of I'm calling it what did I say? It was like a biotech injection or something like that. It sounds dirty.
Yeah, but, something like that. I guess we haven't gotten to that. Well, there's a lot of biomech stuff.
Yeah.
In it.
So it in my real life, I have did a lot of video and animation for biotechnology clients for over 20 years. And so pursuing that as a fictional concept is interesting to me. So I've been doing some work in error correction, trying to make some plausible sort of biotechnology stuff happen in that story.
Yeah. So the jargon is superb, but not over the top.
Yeah, as I wanted it to be more believable than I guess Star Trek, the Star Trek jargon. Yeah. So we're going to read error correction today.
My damn arm here, it's like flopping on me.
Oh yeah.
All right, ready.
You surviving? Okay. So yeah, we're going to read error correction today. I think TJ's got some information about what's No Nut November called?
No Nut November. We don't nut, we don't shave, and we write all month. It's called NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo. Sorry. Yeah. So TJ and I both I
failed No Nut day one, by the way.
Yeah. No. I was joking. But I failed the NaNoWriMo almost immediately. I think I've only written a couple of times.
There's still time.
Oh yeah. No, I'll jump on it again. I just I'm not keeping up with the daily. At least I'm not writing the stuff that I said I was going to be writing.
You add at least 500 to 1,000 words to every chapter, though, so that counts.
Oh, does that count?
Yeah.
Even if it's not working on the project that's on NaNoWriMo?
Well, we're working on 3 things simultaneously, so we're already kind of not following it.
Okay, gotcha.
And
okay.
I'm probably going to put double the amount of words in too.
Okay, yeah. So TJ's got some. We'll talk about that later, but we'll discuss that a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about the free write, which we've talked about before, but I think that sort of goes in with NaNoWriMo. And then I guess we'll just see where the rest of the vid stream takes us. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll start with the error correction chapter.
Yes.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this is chapter 2, and it's called The Bounty. This is probably the coldest room I've ever worked in. Connection hubs always ran hotter than they were supposed to be. It's almost always cheaper to keep the spaces at 37 degrees. Ops would rather replace heat failure losses than pay an exhaust tax. In contrast, this entire space, including the bathroom, was icy, which meant expensive. The calibrated pressure of the vector cooler thrust was nearly silent, as nearly as silent as the rest of the equipment. Cheap co-location facilities were hot and loud. This entire facility, by comparison, was incredibly high-end, cold, and silent. The dimly lit flashing indicator lights in her periphery drew her attention. Green. Red, red. Green, green. Solid red. She thought, the data array storage module is going bad. The red lights recovered to green, and she changed her mind. It's automatically getting replaced by parity. That was fast. Faster than typical. None of the equipment was made by slave labor, not directly. It was all the good stuff. Yep, cold room. There was definitely money here. She was chasing an anonymous bounty. That meant the data was important enough for someone to be... Sorry, let me start that again.
Yeah.
She was chasing an anonymous bounty. That meant that the data was important enough for someone to use a third-party broker to hide their identity. She paused for a moment and thought about the numbers. M150 was bank. More than she made in the last 2 years. That was what they called it on the street. Bank. The kind of large sum you don't spend. Just tuck it away somewhere. She whispered to herself as she scanned her slip code before injecting it into the target system. Bank 150. She was surprised at how easy it was for her to get physical access to this location. The hub was the direct provider for the Exodite Election Committee. It was likely to be the best building in a bad neighborhood, and they assumed obscurity was their protection. The door had been easy to access. The state-of-the-art ring polynomial key had been left on the default setting. Every room, including the bathroom, looked like no one had been there since they hung their lab coats by the door after the install. Oversight was the most common vulnerability. She thought about her career in the information sector as her code wormed through the system. Most of the jobs she got were simple, remote retrievals from badly maintained facilities. Her typical client was low-level managers, trying to discover where their bandwidth was leaking. They ran with rooms filled with end-of-life tech and crusty old technicians scheming about upgrades. The mid-level had been where her real money was generated. Small business owners replacing EOLs with refurbs or retro gear of questionable provenance. Much like the transceiver she just replaced. Operators often didn't realize their old tech with incompatible interfaces was more secure than their new bargain tech. Nearly all contemporary attacks relied on nefarious manufacturers that built backdoors into their gear, assembled in slave labor camps. She threw one of the lab coats on over her black jacket and watched the progress bar fill the monitor, partly because she was cold, and partly because of her stalker waiting outside. She retrieved the duped keyed transceiver from the kiosk and kept on the lab coat as she hastily exited the room, slamming the door behind her. She felt her hair stuck inside the neck of the lab coat as she was walking out of the hub. She reached back with both hands and pulled it out, letting it spill over the white coat as she stood on the curb. The move was performative. Mara Ivanova wanted the man that followed her here to see her in the bright white coat. She wanted him to see the white against the raven hair. She wanted him to see the white against her raven hair. She had closed the Oh, man, I'm really messing this one up. He had closed the distance. She waited a moment longer.
I'm following it.
You're following? Okay, all right. Yeah, I didn't lose you. All right. He had closed the distance. She waited a moment longer. She was hoping he would mark the change. Her strategy was to let him see. She predicted he would notice the contrast between the bright coat and dark hair as she led him on a chase. She further calculated he would reflexively look for that combination on the street and among the crowd. She needed to be easy to track until she didn't. She could turn a corner or duck into a building and ditch the coat. Maybe she could lose him with a little misdirection. She surmised the trick was worth the shorter distance between them. She was fast and could increase the gap later. Her secondary plan was to let him catch up and reveal his intentions. If she couldn't lose him, she could confront him. That was riskier, but might answer nagging questions. Her curiosity was piqued, which usually meant she was in trouble, or on the verge of success. Maybe he could tell her why there had been a surge of deletions recently. Had it been target-related? Who was dumping all that data? Why? This was the first tale she had on this job. Considering how big it was, she had expected more. More people, more questions, more info-rats talking about the ridiculous bounty and hidden threads. Surely he was hunting her because of what she was doing. It's possible he was on a different job, but unlikely. More likely that he was hired by Carver, which meant the encounter could turn deadly. Mara merged with the press of pedestrians. She and her tail walked away from the private hub. It was owned by Reese Vogel, a society power broker turned politician for the Exodites. Maybe they were tracking her, and Vogel hired her tail. Unlikely, unless this whole job was a setup. Reese was her black market target for the anonymous bounty. 150M. That's reversed. It's M150. M150 paid in real market transfer via escrow, not some black market barter. She didn't know him, didn't want to know him, but everybody knew of him. Reese was famous. The Exodites named him their political representative on Earth, and Reese had done his job well. The Exodites seemed more popular than ever, and were set to win their bid for reintegration. A year ago, everyone had been afraid, or at least skeptical of these outsiders. The Exodites claimed to be a lost collection of people wanting to come back to live on Earth with their ancestors from before the collapse. Reese plied the rich society types with dreams of more money and stumped for access among pact officials and their vast labor empire. He even reached out to the middle and lower class with promises of more technology, more access, and better amenities for everyday life. Sticks for all was what they called it on the street. It started out as a joke, pretending he was feeding everyone by giving away the inexpensive but ubiquitous food sticks. But somehow, Reese turned it into a win by actually throwing out food sticks at rallies. Even Mara had to admit it was a good move. Everyone, rich and poor alike, ate the things and would show up to listen. The atmosphere was like a festival, and everyone walked away with snacks and propaganda. She hated to admit she probably had 10 different flavors in her backpack right now, though she was annoyed that she was running low on blueberry, her favorite. Reese's plan was working. Everyone was willing to spend the paltry amount of M1. That's wrong. 1M. Reese's plan was working. Everyone was willing to spend the paltry amount of 1M to vote yes on the Exodite reintegration. For those without means, Reese had established monetary transfers through a third-party fund to anyone that wanted to vote. The charity CFR, or Citizens for Exodite Reintegration, would always include the phrase, regardless of whether you vote no, yes or no. Of course, it was illegal to say otherwise. It was noticeable the Exodites had only one loss, and it had been before Reese joined them. He had been recruited the day after the Exodites failed to secure a chance to vote for themselves for reintegration. Though all of the Exodite credentials checked out, they certainly had enough means to pay for their voting block. The first electoral goal was denied them. At that time, no one trusted them enough. The common argument was no feet, no vote, vote no, which was shorthand for they don't live here, so they can't vote here, which strictly speaking was true. Mara had voted no herself in that first decision. Voting where you lived was a post-collapse concept that was at least hundreds of years old and grew in parallel with the monetary system. Essentially, if you had M1 and your feet on the ground, i.e. lived where a vote was happening, you were considered a citizen. The concept erased many old political and national borders while fracturing the electorate into thousands of subgroups. Each subgroup championed its own set of issues, which varied from the grandiose to the mundane. Amid this highly diverse landscape of interests, Reese had risen to prominence, capturing the attention and loyalty of various factions and turning them into a pro-Exodite or at least pro-reintegration population. But he couldn't overcome their lost ground from that first no vote. Sorry, I just lost my place. The results made the upcoming election accessible to virtually everyone except the Exodites. They had the means, they had the power, they had the influence, but they didn't have their feet on the ground, so they didn't get a vote. Now their giant spherical ship sat there hovering above the city, waiting for a decision. The Exodites were undoubtedly planning some form of coup or transfer of power or whatever it was that godlike wealthy people living in spaceships did for fun. Was it important? Maybe. But it didn't matter much to Mara or anyone she knew, except the access to related data might be worth something to someone. She needed access because the Exodites were the key to getting the data on Reese and collecting the bounty. But selling a backdoor remote transceiver into the Exodite ship would be a bonus. She wouldn't have much trouble finding a buyer for that either. To her, it didn't make much difference who was in charge. The Society, Pact, and now the Exodites would play their power games, and yet somehow the value of the means always seemed to stay the same. The old song went, "Meet the new boss, same as the old boss." She said aloud, "Yeah." Her tail was now 60 meters away. She crossed the alley. "Hey, ya!" A street vendor greeted her. In what language was that? Dutch? Swedish? She was close to Avondale, an almost rich neighborhood, so that tracked. "Oh, hey, you back." She faked a nod to risk a side glance at her pursuer. He was twice as close now, and there was anger there. No, more than anger, malevolence. And hatred? Murder, maybe. The lines of stress wrinkling his forehead didn't make his intentions any clearer. He was clad in all black, attempting to blend in with the dark, soot-streaked surroundings. She winked at the vendor as she passed and gave the universal head nod for, "I'm not interested, but that guy following me is a sucker and wants to buy 2 of whatever you have." The vendor looked past her and walked toward the stalker, saying, "Hey, how about it? M70, you get zine codes for look, buck, transcendent, boom, and more. Direct access to discrete data. I hear Kaylani is getting married again." Mara guessed the Swedish accent won over the middle-class locals, interested in the prurient details of rich people's sex lives. They couldn't afford to eat, look, or fuck like the rich, but they could afford to read about it. She had seen the back-end deals for the zine code market, and celebrities were in on the take. It was all fake. The direct-to-market details were invented by out-of-work, out-of-date actors, athletes, and politicians trying to hang on to fame. They hired ghostwriters to make up stories, and hired a crew to fake leaks of their life and video, and witness interviews. It all got bundled into access packages that almost everyone loved to watch nearly constantly. The vendor positioned himself between her and the stalker, providing a momentary shield. Mara continued looking forward, no more glances for the moment. She needed to reach the drop box. It was the next left ahead. She tucked into the alcove and ditched the lab coat around the corner in a single motion. At this point, she might not lose him, but her dark jacket and dark hair against the smoky buildings would help if it came to confrontation. Once she retrieved the stack from the box, this step would be complete. She could connect the transceiver to the box bandwidth node, transfer the key to the stack she had hidden there, and walk away with protected remote access to the exodites. However, she would need to address her pursuer. She stood by herself in the sea of drop boxes that acted as both a hard access point and small storage in an overcrowded sprawl, where space and high-quality access were at a premium. These were the small 10-inch cubes with locking doors and decent connectivity. It was fast enough that she could siphon off the exodite data through the box as a makeshift proxy. It was also rented by Nishi Wang, a 34-year-old technical writer that didn't exist but had a clean record nonetheless. This was a street-level cube. It was expensive, but not high-end. Something a soak kit might use when he was slumming it on the streets. The higher you went in elevation, the higher you went in society, and the access boxes got bigger and more expensive as well. The ones on the upper levels were big enough to sleep inside. They were bigger than a laborer's cube, and used to store personal char vehicles or other weird rich people stuff. She keyed in the code and then retrieved the small, smooth black device from the box and examined it. The delivery had come through. She was now holding the most expensive item she owned. She watched the stack light up, its black surface blinking in her right hand as it communicated with the stolen transceiver in her left. After they were paired, she plugged the transceiver into the access point inside the box. It would now broadcast until authorities detected it, but hopefully not before she stole everything she needed from the exodite ship. The connection was solid, so she put the stack in her pocket and tucked away the transceiver in the box. Then she reached into the cubby to retrieve something else. A heavy steel gun slid smoothly from a bio-locked metal safety restraint. She felt the heft and checked the cylinder. Her courier had come through on the gun as well. Mara walked back to the corner to wait, with the gun in her hand, but concealed in her jacket pocket. She was listening for his pace to slow as he came around the corner. The pursuer was confronted by Mara's resolute, motionless porcelain face, a sculpture that read, "I fucking got you." The gun helped emphasize the message. Glancing from her expression to the barrel, pointed at his head, seemed almost an afterthought. Then he looked at the drop boxes behind her. Oh God, no. He fell to the ground, crawling backward. Was this groveling? She didn't have much experience with groveling. She moved closer but stayed outside his reach. He was tall, thin, and wiry, the kind that could throw a punch if taught how. She held the ancient .44. He flinched. A shuffle of his foot in a puddle echoed down the alley. She had to fight back the smirk, threatening to break her practiced expression. She held the look. He seemed truly afraid, so she continued. What now? She spat the words low and slow, but clear with a big pause in between. Is that? He whispered. He was trembling and holding his hands close, like he was cold. His finger gestured to the Dropbox. She answered, Uploading? Yes. Don't do it. It's already done, she answered. Mara turned her head 20 degrees to the module, keeping the row of Dropboxes and the stalker in her peripheral. Her gun arm remained steady. You won't be affected. You can tell him you couldn't find me. She was guessing now, but assumed this was a hire. Somebody else wanted the bounty, but didn't want to do the work. We're all dead, so it doesn't matter. We're all dead. Then he just gave up and slumped onto the concrete. He looked cold. He looked wet. He said, Just kill me now. And she thought he already looked dead. That tempted her, putting him out of his misery. She adjusted her headphones as she held the gun. They were the big kind, designed to look like the ones you used to see in old pictures. She started hearing the feedback from her stack. The agent had access to the remote expedite system. It was starting. She needed to get back to the tunnels soon. She could monitor everything from there. She backed away. Her assailant backed away as well. She imagined he would inevitably report this as the location, but anyone that wanted the money wouldn't report the illegal access connection she just made until after they had stolen what they wanted. She thought about moving it into a different Dropbox, but she didn't have another anonymous account, and it took time to get one assigned. Nushi Wang would have to hold on for another few hours at least, hopefully longer. The man stood motionless in the rain. He said, Carver will kill me. She replied, Then why work for him? He's going to kill you too, but you can't let him. The Exodites are dangerous, more dangerous than Carver. He continued to back away, and she did as well. He seemed spooked, and she wasn't about to follow him, especially if Carver was involved. She waited in the alley and was about to retreat over to the cross street when she heard the gun. Not hers, but she could guess. She made her way back to the corner and slowly peeked around. The former pursuer was lying in the street. His head was already pouring blood into the gutter. He was holding a small caliber handgun, and the crowd was flowing away from him like he was infected. The Swedish street seller was running away from the dead man. Some curious onlookers didn't flee but kept their distance. They were all looking around. Mara did what she did and disappeared into the foot traffic and left the scene. Probably the UPUs were already on their way. The last thing she needed was to be cuffed by one of the flying restraint bots, because she was carrying a handgun. She also had it was also probable there was camera footage of her altercation in the alley. This suicide would draw attention, and someone might look at the footage. She would have to clean that up before anyone started looking. She thought the thought, and the stack started working, using her existing LeoSec agent. Who writes this shit?
Who the fuck writes this shit?
Yeah. She thought the thought, and the stack agent started working, using her existing LeoSec agent connections to get access to the camera feed. It was almost effortless. The stack was paying off already. Somewhere up there, service continued the transfer. Her ghost data faded into the ether. Revelations concealed themselves. Consequences remained uncertain. All the big shit that no one noticed was happening, and she was in the middle. LeoSec reported that it had successfully replaced the footage with an empty alley. Mara continued through the neighborhood. She was right in the middle of the North American sprawl. Mara could walk from and into the city at the same time. The only way out was east or west, or down. If you followed along the metal shores of Big Sister, the city didn't end for 1,000 miles north or south. The neighborhoods all had names like Cindian, Linden, Avondale, but the city was nameless apart from nicknames. Nova, or the Northern Lady were Mara's favorites. The Northern Lady's concrete forest was ablaze with vibrant illuminated colors, reflected in a way that made it seem like shining water. To match, a blue mirage in the air bounced off of a gray backdrop sky. The lights, windows, and surfaces were wet with rain and made the dirty city feel clean. All black buildings covered in soot were punctuated with bright, high-density digital eyes. To Mara Ivanova, the sprawlscape was more than steel or glass. It was a vessel, an organic network alive with information, its veins coursing with data. Often, like today, her job was easier than expected. It had been easy to break into the hub, easy to slip the transceiver in the key. The data was locked in old familiar technology, blinking lights and notifications, and someone had forgotten and left the key sitting on the doorstep. Even her stalker killed himself, but she wasn't sure if that would prove easy or difficult by the end of the heist. Her target was rarely something that breathed and bled, at least not directly, but people often stood between her and the streams of data, cool code, and raw, unfiltered information. On the other hand, the kind locked in the lying eyes and dark hearts was harder to get, but not impossible. They made mistakes, fell for lies, and otherwise behaved unexpectedly. Occasionally, your pursuer might have a mental breakdown and shoot themselves in the street. On the surface, that would seem like a blessing, but when Carver was involved, it meant danger. Mara jogged, then ran, then sprinted into the darkness ahead, toward the tunnels beneath H-15, and hopefully safety. All right, that's Chapter 2, The Bounty, from Error Correction.
Error correction. A lot of world building in that chapter.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a complex one. I think my first read went a lot better than my nervous online read. I don't know what was happening there, but I kept getting ahead of myself, I think.
I don't know.
I give myself a 80%.
Yeah, 85.
Okay, yeah.
Solid B.
Yeah, I'll take that. One more point and it'd be a B+.
Is that how it goes?
I don't know. It's probably 87 for B+.
S or whatever. What do they do now?
Oh, S for satisfactory or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They changed that towards the tail end of my childhood, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Weird grades. Just do A+. It's fine.
So, yeah. So, you want to do a little character breakdown on Mara?
Yeah. Mara Ivanova. No.
Yeah, Ivanova.
Ivanova.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was Mara's your invention.
Yep.
And then I think I just added to her.
Yes.
I think you sort of set her look and her job and that kind of stuff, and I sort of created her technology and
Oh, yeah.
and sort of her method of working.
And we're both kind of doing the personality, but she's a character we've seen before, but we're going somewhere else.
Yeah, gotcha. And yeah, I mean, this is basically you have a type, right? I guess it's the
Yeah. Slightly light skin, light eyes, and dark hair,
yeah.
and
So
lean, athletic body.
so this is basically your wife, which makes me feel a little bit wrong for writing some of the scenes that I've had to write. But
Yeah. Well, you didn't have to. You just did.
oh yeah, where no one has gone before. Yeah. So Mara's the protagonist, obviously.
Yep.
And
The main.
yeah, obviously a hacker. And obviously on a job. And so
The whole book is her sitting at a laptop.
yeah, exactly. It's the movie is just her typing.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah. So I guess we're sort of reinventing the info heist here. But for this particular type of heist, I wanted it to have a little bit more physicality. So I think the idea is that like all of this big data and stuff is sort of tied up in server rooms and nodes and other things.
Yeah.
Making places important so that it's not just somebody sitting, not just a man in the room or whatever.
Yeah, we wanted to avoid the little thumb drive thing.
Yeah.
Like we made the typically small thing. I think you've made the typically tiny things enormous.
Yeah.
I think.
And then I didn't want to have like a lot. I think people have used the term stack before, although not in this way. Like usually it's like some integrated thing into their brain or into their spinal column or something like that. But I wanted it to be something that was technology that sort of Bluetooth synced to your like to your personal sort of biorhythms.
Yeah.
Biorhythms is a bad word because that's kind of pseudoscience, but through some magical future technology, it can you can synchronize it so that it reads some rudimentary commands, and you can give it commands basically like through Wi-Fi, but it basically detects your brain waves or something. I don't know. I should probably come up with a better explanation for it. But essentially you can, and I think there's actually technology that
Well,
does
we're
this.
we're allowed one lightsaber.
Sure, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but there actually is some research for this where people like put on these little hats and they can think thoughts and do rudimentary commands to a computer. So it's basically sort of the evolution of that.
Yeah.
But it's not like she's not like psychically controlling it. She just thinks the commands, and it's knows to detect these certain commands and then execute or whatever because she's paired with it.
Yeah, like a new animal but digital.
Yeah. Yeah, like a Neopet. Anybody from the 90s have a Neopet?
I've seen them.
Yeah. You're too young for a Neopet. It's like,
No,
was that your generation?
We had Neopets.
Yeah, they were little digital Tamagotchis or whatever. You had to feed them every day, or they would die.
What did you have to buy another one?
I think you could reset it or something. You take the battery out or something, but that was cheating.
If I invented those, it'd be like, nope, another $20.
Yeah,
Feed your animal.
It's genius. We should start selling them today.
It's genius. Wait, that's I can coin that term. It's genius. Like when you do something that's pretty smart, but it's fucking dickheaded. It's genius.
Yeah, something that ends up in copious amounts of money, like coming up with lots of little characters and printing them on cards. Yeah,
we can do that.
Yeah. So whatever our version of Pokemon is.
Yeah.
All right, we've gone way off script now.
You said that, and I'm like, yeah. Wait, that is something.
That is a thing. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're both a tiny bit off today.
Yeah, I needed 2 more Red Bulls.
Red Balls.
Yeah. So that's Mara. I don't know if we really got delved into her character analysis enough, but
not too much. And she's not. I think what we have her do physically makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and to me, I think her superpower is sort of prediction. So I have her, at least there's a couple of sentences in there where she sort of predicts what she thinks might happen. And she's thinking about like this guy that's following her and making choices while she's on the run doing stuff. And I have her make those choices and think about them in essentially every chapter. Mm-hmm. So she's constantly calculating and recalculating. And so to me, that's kind of her superpower. So she's sort of looking at things, thinking about what the outcome of those things are, and then sort of reality hacking based off of what she sees and how she reacts.
And the way I wrote her in other kind of less intense scenes is she maybe loses that ability when the situation is like not intense.
Yeah, she switches off.
Yeah.
And I did notice that. So, again, I think we've talked about this process a little bit where you kind of throw up a big chunk of text and then I start like editing it before I've even read it.
Yeah.
So I'm editing it as I go. And the goal is to try and predict, like try and guess where you're headed. And that was one of those things where the guess was correct. So I was like, oh, I think he's given her a switch so she can sort of flip on her superpower and then turn it back off.
Yeah. And she's like this is not like a detective story, but I kind of thought of Sherlock Holmes. Like, it's kind of fucking annoying. He's just on all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe it'd be better if, in some ways in personal life, a character like that was just kind of fumbling. But when it came to the job, he was on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is, she's on and then she parties hard, I think is the sort of the outcome. And so we'll get to see a little bit of that in some of the next chapters as we move through. But she's got to go through some bullshit first, because that's what you do to your protagonist. Throw a bunch of bullshit at him.
Yeah, she'll get some limbs cut off. which is what
She gets murdered and then comes back to life. That's her other superpower. And when I say superpower, I don't actually mean superpower. I mean, like, this is what she's good at. So she's not, it's not actually supernatural or anything.
Yeah.
She's smart and predictive. She does all of these sort of like 80-20 rule predictions,
yeah.
trying to constantly like surf that 80%.
This is very D&D where we're going to have a bunch of people who can do specific things. Is that kind of how
Yeah. I didn't think about it being the party, but there's definitely a party.
Yeah.
And who's the useless bard is really the question.
Liam at times when
Yeah,
there's nothing to punch.
I felt like he's the fighter, but yeah, he might be. Maybe he's half bard, half fighter.
When they're lobbing spells at the things far away, like what the hell's a fighter going to do? Run?
Exactly. It's mostly a joke directed at bards to try and get rage clicks.
Or is that blue magic or something? The songs? What the hell is that?
Oh, I don't know.
I just know Final Fantasy. So
You stumped me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know Final Fantasy. I only know core D&D.
I think there's some overlap.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably. Dragons. So yeah. So I do think you're correct. There's a party element.
Yeah.
Definitely some people that's got some specifics. There's a little bit of crossover. We got a couple of hackers.
I'm like spazzing on this switcher today.
Yeah, that's good. Everybody needs a little excitement while we're talking about
All right.
D&D parties. So
Why not?
yeah, if you could do it fast enough, we blend into one person.
Oh, can it do? Does it have the ability? Oh, almost.
Yeah, we just lost 5 years. No, I'm kidding. We didn't even start with 5 years. So, all right. So that's Mara Ivanova. We got any questions or anything?
Not about anything we read, just what happened to the Minecraft guys.
Oh yeah, Minecraft guys.
Mulin Records asks.
So Eric and Brent and Wes, and that's sort of the core 3 Minecraft guys. I know they're not doing the Shaft anymore. They sort of did a resurgence. They had a Shaft podcast channel for a little bit. Eric is now doing like a retro video thing with his partner Daryl, and those two have been making videos since like they were kids. Like that was how I first met them, was being in, I think they had to do a movie project for us, like it was like a science project for like high school or something, and they asked the teacher if they could do a movie, and it was about like they had to pick an element, so they picked gold. So they did this like heist movie where like people were like shooting each other and like trying to steal gold and stuff, and then in the middle of the heist it's like gold has an atomic number of whatever, and and then they turned that in. But I had to be like, I think I got cast in their video because I owned a trench coat, a leather trench coat, so they made me like a bad guy or something. And
yeah, you have a trench coat.
Yeah, and so we all like beat each other up downtown, and then Eric edited the thing together, and I think it was the only A he got in his entire high school career or something like that. But yeah, so he and Daryl are doing some retro video stuff, and I think they're actually getting some pretty good traction.
I watched some of the Eric and Daryl stuff.
Yeah, Eric and Daryl. Yeah,
pretty cool. Stuff.
I'll have to, maybe we'll throw the link down in the description below, so y'all can go check them out. And then I don't think Brent's doing any broadcasting. I play D&D with him once a week on Sundays. We're sort of wrapping up our campaign and then trying to figure out what we're going to do moving forward. But we've been playing together for 3 years now or something like that, through the pandemic and up to now.
Yeah.
So that's what they're up to. Wes, I'm not sure. But yeah, maybe we need to get I keep saying this, I think weekly I say I need to reach out and get them back on the channel for something, because I'm sure it would be super popular.
Yeah.
And if they're willing to do it, we could probably arrange that. I think the secret is it going to be Control Point, or is it going to be the Shaft? Is it going to be Minecraft related, or is it going to be Team Fortress related? I think there should be a battle royale, and whoever wins gets a reunion show. It's all the same people. It's just two different shows.
Like all you battle each other, and then whoever wins gets to do whatever.
Yeah. It should be a machinima down. Somebody should make a Minecraft machinima, but using only Team Fortress graphics. And then somebody should make a Team Fortress machinima, but only using Minecraft. And then we'll judge. Don't do this. It's a horrible idea.
If I had to, if I was an old fan, the question I would have is, do you know what those guys think about this?
Oh, what we're doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't actually talked to them. I'll have to reach out. I think I mentioned it to Brent and told him what I was doing. Brent would probably notice some connections to some of the writing that I'm doing. Subluminous, the name of our stream, is actually part of my D&D world too. So I use that term in D&D for a similar reason. So it's part of the lore of all the crap that I'm working on. But I haven't talked to Eric in a couple of years. But yeah, I should reach out to them and see what they think of me.
Yeah. Do we have no other characters?
Oh, and well, we could talk about the Exodites. Is that what you mean?
What are the Exodites? What's a mean? What's a stick?
Yeah, so stick is food. The
Stick
idea
is
that I
life.
had for that was that there was actually, I did some research on some different kinds of foods from the space era, like the 1950s and 60s. And the space race was causing a lot of people to do anything space related would sell really well. So like Tang was like a space age drink and all this other stuff. And Pillsbury actually created these food sticks. They didn't call them that, but it was like these, I don't know, these baked flavored sticks that you could buy that were like packaged or whatever. And so I was like, okay. So I was like, what if that was like the one thing that survived the apocalypse from Pillsbury was these sticks, and they became like super popular because it just basically got everybody through famines and stuff. And
This
they
is
could
Taco Bell and Demolition Man.
yeah, and they could make them, they're shelf stable for hundreds of years or something like that, and they had like just thousands of different flavors, right? So it just became this like sort of ubiquitous snack food, and everybody had their own. And there's like ancient flavors that get resurrected every once in a while that are 100 years old, and they haven't had them around for a long time. And so like you could go into any given store and there might be a pile of sticks there, but there are all these sort of different flavors, and you might find a rare one or something. It goes back to our Pokemon cards.
McRib flavor.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and basically, the company is just still making them or whatever. So that's sticks. And then we have the Exodites, which are these people that are in this spaceship that left Earth when shit was getting bad. So there's this kind of apocalypse that's called the collapse that I reference. And the collapse is it's not like a meteorite hits the Earth and everything is doom and gloom, but it's a contraction or shrinking of human population over a long period of time. So for myriad reasons, the human population shrinks from 9 billion down to millions. And because there are less and less people, all of the ability for humans to produce all of the things that they normally produce and manufacturing and all that stuff starts collapsing as well. And so humans shrink down to a small number. They get a little bit tribal, but then they start building back up. And so now we're back on the upswing, and they have rebuilt society, but they're trying to rebuild society carefully so that they don't have another collapse event. And so they're trying to regulate their money, and they're trying to live. They basically want to live in like one large enclave that stretches for a long streak, but then they leave everything else sort of wild. So like all the areas outside of their big sprawling enclave is just like wild forests and animals and whatever else. And so that's sort of the landscape. And then the Exodites are trying to return after having, I sort of thinking of them as a gated community. They were rich enough to afford a spaceship, which is like the ultimate gated community because you can't get in it unless you've got your own spaceship. And so they left and then survived in their own spaceship, which was kind of designed to be like a tropical paradise in space. And then they returned, and they're trying
resort of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. And so all these rich people are trying to return to Earth, but the political system requires them to have a local vote for where they want to settle. And so that's what this election commission thing is going on. And so Reese Vogel, who is the politician that's stumping for them, become very successful. And so it looks like the Exodites are going to win this election. And in the midst of this, somebody puts up a bounty for Reese to dig into all of his information, probably related to the Exodites, but we don't know yet. And so she has taken this anonymous bounty because it's really lucrative. And she seems to be having some success, at least in this chapter.
Yes. And the Exodites have been gone for 100 years, hundreds.
Yeah, I think it's hundreds of years, maybe like 300-400 years or something like that.
Yeah.
We talk about sort of we get into some more of the politics and how the voting works and that kind of thing. But the means is basically, it's essentially a blockchain monetary system that has tracking. And but it also, they have created a voting system on the top of it. And so essentially you have this paltry sum, which is one mean, which is a very small amount, or M1, which is it's like 0.1% of a dollar or something like that. And that's essentially, it's basically you take a penny and you vote. And so the way that you vote is you transfer that penny when an ad hoc election happens, and elections can happen at any time. So there's all these like voting blocks where people are like saying, hey, we want you to vote for this. And then people say, oh yeah, I'll vote that. So it's basically like a thumbs up in current times on like Twitter or something like that. Mm. And so, but everybody has skin in the game because they put this like one little amount, paltry sum. But for really big elections, that could actually mean something because that money goes to the winner. So it's also like campaign funding as well. So everything has got this sort of Kickstarter feel to it for voting. And all these voting blocks sort of build themselves up. They promote themselves. People, and then the news starts reporting, oh, look, these voting guys, these blocks are getting a lot of money. Maybe you should go vote for it. And then people throw money in it. And then when the election ends, that becomes law. And so all of that law gets integrated into society.
Yeah. This is a world of like crypto and crowdfunding and making individual things into a mass, and then
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm
trying to figure out a way to say it.
Yeah, no, it's all sort of like vote bundling, basically. So these voter blocks are divided into lots of little voter blocks, but then they also sort of connect to like larger voter blocks for more important things. Mm-hmm. And then they're also divided by like, since the sprawl is like not states or counties or anything, it's like one big sprawl. It's basically people voting for things where they live. And then really, really big stuff might have more regional voting blocks, but really, really small stuff might be just a neighborhood voting block. So there might even be like somebody that's almost sort of the mayor of the neighborhood just because they went out and campaigned and people were like, yeah, I like this guy. We should listen to him and give him money, and then he'll fix up the street or whatever, Mm-hmm. So that's just sort of how their society operates.
And this was all thought up. I think we spoke before about the birth of this whole thing, but a couple months ago, May, June, maybe.
Yeah, I think in our preview, recording, I don't know if that ever actually went out, but we did a preview recording where we read this chapter and sort of talked about the birth of error correction, and we might have talked a little bit about it when we read the first chapter as well. But yeah, so I was reluctant to do some cyberpunk, and then I started thinking about what were some things that we could make commentary on that are sort of modern society. And I was like, okay, well, TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and voting and thumbs up and you know.
That's what I thought when you said about you rich enough to have a spaceship. You can build your own spaceship.
Yeah.
Would be a thing that was said to, I guess, lower class people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So obviously, yeah, it's all a commentary on sort of modern society and like what would happen if we took modern society to the nth degree, and what could it look like? And so that was really fun to me, and I hadn't seen anybody else really doing a whole lot of that. People sort of tackle like what's it like to be online and that sort of thing, or a lot of times they avoid it completely, and they're like, oh, nobody has any phones in my world, and so they sort of do it like Star Warsy, right? So the communication is not this sort of integrated thing, but I wanted to make communication part of it, but then sort of build it in a way that we could still have action and that sort of thing. And so that's the world we ended up
We
with.
had the no phones talk.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if we've actually even mentioned any phones yet, but there's definitely communication happening as if people have these items. So
there would need to be in this the world. There has to be some kind of above board communication and some kind of secret encrypted way of talking.
Yeah, exactly. And so so they're definitely messaging each other in some way, and they're talking to each other. They're video chatting or whatever. But it's all, devices are sort of ubiquitous. So the phone is not ubiquitous, but the connectivity is. And so they might be connecting with each other in all different types of ways on different types of devices, but it's all basically, essentially sort of works out to be like a phone, but there's just not they don't bust out the iPhone.
Yeah. And I think a lot of sci-fi and cyberpunk all get lost in the technology, but this really isn't. It's all nice dressing, but it really isn't about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping that, I can feed it a little bit at a time so that it's not overwhelming. Once we get into the biotechnology stuff, that's where I get a little bit worried about the writing, because the things that I might feel are super fun and nerdy might be really boring to somebody else. But I'm trying to make it sort of interesting by having it be high technology, but also potentially deadly, but also like potentially driving the storyline. So I think once we get to that, it becomes a little bit less window dressing, and it's a little bit more integral to the plot.
Yeah.
Because the actual cyberpunk stuff is everybody's done hacking, right? And so, and a lot of people have done some biohacking, but I'm hoping that the biohacking stuff that I add is something new that people haven't seen before.
Yeah. Is it helping with the originality when I just think of some damn thing and like you're kind of left to figure out, well, how can this work as realistically as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of take your original text as like problem solving. So I'm like, the first thing I do is I was like, what the hell is he talking about here? And then I'm like, okay, I get where he's going. How does that work, right? So I think UPUs were the thing that you were really wanting to put in here to make it more dystopian. So what I did with the UPUs was like, okay, well, let's talk about the UPUs as law enforcement at first, and then they become more draconian and more dystopian as we move along. And so that's where I took the UPUs. But when they first popped up, I was like, I don't really know what to do with them yet. And so then I made them law enforcement, and then over time, like, what is it about law enforcement that's interesting? Okay, well, if law enforcement is corrupted by politicians, or if law enforcement is made up of corrupt individuals, or if law enforcement, if there's a stalwart person within the law enforcement that's fighting the bad guys that are also within law enforcement, those are all like interesting storylines. So I think that's
which
where
works, because at this point they're kind of like they're like the neighborhood bobbies who like aren't a huge threat, but you don't want to run into them.
Yeah, exactly. They're these sort of non-lethal bots that fly around, and like one of them, is kind of harmless. It's like sort of a drone, but they swarm you essentially and start setting off alarms, and they attach to you and they beep really loud, and then eventually there's enough of them like on you, if you're carrying like Mara's running away from them because there's a gunshot, so they're all going to come to this gunshot, and she doesn't want to be around holding a weapon and risk getting flagged by these things, because then they start attaching themselves to you, and now you're like stuck with a whole bunch of things like making loud sirens and then waiting for the paddy wagon to come show up and take you put you in a cell.
They're like a car boot with an alarm on it.
Yeah, but it's like a human car boot. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of jumping the gun a little bit, but we'll do some more UPU stuff. But then eventually they sort of evolve, the UPUs, and then law enforcement in general sort of evolves into a whole other thing.
Oh yeah, because like police can go from the friendly neighborhood, just regular cop, on up to like a military presence.
Yeah, exactly. And so once we get into sort of the bigger government conspiracy stuff, and we start getting a little bit more dystopian as the book, because right now we're not dystopian yet, but we're headed in that direction. So that's.
I think I wrote a bit of book 2, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
this is
Yeah. So we'll get there. But right now we're just happy to be living in the current version of utopia, and then that utopia is going to crumble.
Yeah. Well, it might not.
Yeah, sure.
You have to read the book to find out.
It'll be fine. Happy ending.
Yeah. Everything you want to happen will happen.
Mm-hmm. The Exodites do the future version of whatever Hands Across America was in the 80s. Yeah. And everybody holds hands and they sing a song, and Michael Jackson comes back to life and sells a record.
With his dark skin.
The 80s Michael Jackson, not 90s Michael Jackson.
Thriller Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
In full form. And he makes a thriller too.
Vitiligo is a real thing, man.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said it's a disease. He gets it back.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Nobody wants it, do they?
Yeah, we use the biotech hacking to fix Michael Jackson.
Do we need a YouTube dump button?
Yeah.
Can we talk about this?
I don't know. Can we? We just did. So
Michael Jackson.
Yeah. So that's I think that we talked about. So we got the Exodites.
The UPU stands for Urban Pacification Unit.
Oh yeah, we should. That's a good.
And that's from RoboCop.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's what Ed 209 is.
Directly stolen. Okay. Yeah. So.
Bob, not Bob, the other guy. The guy that gets blown up with a grenade by Clarence Bodiger. He calls the whole program the Urban Pacification.
Okay. I'm surprised I didn't remember that. I like RoboCop a lot. But so these are the UPUs. I think that's sort of everything we covered in the book. We talked about Carver a little bit. He's sort of an unknown bad guy, pulling some strings. I guess Carver doesn't like to do the work, so he hires other people to kill somebody that's already done the work and then just steals the work. Yeah. I think is his MO, but we'll get into him more later. He becomes a little bit more of a presence.
He can actually be involved with the new characters, Gar and Grendel.
What?
In the new chapter I wrote.
Oh, I haven't read it yet, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I saw some other names, but I didn't see those. I'll have to double check.
I just put it up this morning, but it feels like 3 days ago.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. He throws up roadblocks, and then I got to go deal with it. So
I throw up sheer gold, but some of it you have to dig.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's got to be refined. So yeah. So that's Error Correction, Chapter 2. Do you want to talk a little bit about November and your writing goals and your successes?
Well, yeah. Success as of now. It's National Novel Writing Month. And what that is a bunch of writers commit to writing at least, 1,667 words a day to end up with 50,000 words by the end of the month, November 30th. And I'm in it's not a contest, but I've, opted into Astro House, who makes the free writes, their sort of leaderboard for NaNoWriMo. And as of today, for the past couple of days, I've been number one out of about almost 500 people who own free rights who are doing National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
And right now, I'm at about 42,000 words. So
you're almost done for the month.
yeah, but I'll
almost
I'll
beat the
keep
goal.
going because there's a lot of people catching up. I think there's a lot of people writing a lot of words this year. I don't think it's been this big before.
Yeah. So I think I'm at 1,000 or something. I submitted a new a new book that is actually me converting. I have a script that I wrote, and I'm converting that script, and it's called The Last 80s Movie.
Yeah.
And then I had this idea of writing a book, but presenting it almost like it's a movie, almost like the people are watching a movie. So the audience is like watching a trailer, and I'm sort of describing like what's happening in the book as if they were watching a movie. And it ended up being pretty cool for the first chapter. But the chapter's pretty short, and I'm basically doing a transcription of my script into a book that reads like you're sort of experiencing a movie. So I use a lot of sort of movie metaphor and allusions to other movies and things like that. And then the character, the big bulk of what's fun about it is the main character goes into this sort of fantasy land, and people sort of snap him back into reality. But his fantasy land is described like really cool movies. Yeah. And so when he talks about things, it sounds really awesome, but in reality, it's just sort of normal things that are happening to him in his day.
Yeah.
And so it's working, but I need to put more words down if I'm going to achieve 50,000 words before the end of the month.
Yeah. It's not too hard.
Yeah. I mean, which 50,000 is, I mean, that's a book,
200
yeah.
pages or something like that.
So, I mean, I've read books that were shorter than that. So,
yeah. I think Fight Club is about that.
Yeah. It's fucking. If I could write a Fight Club in a month, I would do it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So that's Nano.
I was thinking,
oh, sorry.
I was thinking like even your chapter for that book, even your chapters could be like slug lines.
Oh yeah. So totally. There's like, I think I forgot what the first one's called, but it's essentially the trailer of the movie, right? And it talks about people like eating popcorn and all this other stuff, and then you hear the the radio voice of the inner world guy or whatever, right? And so I sort of describe the intro scene and all that stuff, and then it flips to the actual characters that are in the last 80s movie. So
yeah,
maybe I'll read it. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah,
that was National Novel Writing Month. I'm number one.
Yeah, TJ number one. NaNoWriMo. JD last place. NaNoWriMo.
Well, there's a lot of people with 0.
Oh, okay, good.
There.
Yeah, all right. Well, I don't have 0.
For some reason, I'm number one for like the overall, but every day I get thrown down to like 170 or something. I'm like, can't I? So I've got to fight for it every day.
Oh, dang. Yeah. All right. Well, you can do it. I believe in you.
Still number one overall.
Yeah. And you're doing this all in the free write, right?
All on free writes.
Okay.
There was actually, I had the one free write that I did like a couple thousand on the first couple of days, but then the majority of the writing on the other two. And I had those like off Wi-Fi. So when I turned them on, I have like one day that was like 20,000 words.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I might do that. Just like leave all of them off Wi-Fi for a week, and then just turn it back on, and they'll all sync and just have a huge bulk of words.
So does that automatically sync with NaNoWriMo, or how does that?
Yeah, they've kind of fully partnered with NaNoWriMo.
Okay.
Like Freewrite people have.
That's cool.
And they have their leaderboard that kind of like tracks everything.
Okay. All right.
On their new their profile thing, kind of just generally shows you all the words you've written over a week or a month or whatever, and they're just using that integrated with NaNoWriMo, and it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So NaNoWriMo ends at the end of November, and then what
Destroy Dick November or December begins.
what so what happens what happens at the end of NaNoWriMo? Like what is is there a party?
You get to buy a shirt that says you won, whether you win or not.
Yeah. That's so I'm definitely buying this shirt. I'm printing my own shirt.
Oh,
So I'm not even going to buy one. I'm just going to print my own shirt that says I won.
yeah.
And I'm going to call it a special edition and then post a video about it.
Special edition.
Yeah.
There's a penis somewhere sewn in.
What?
It's like the phantom thread, the phantom cock.
What?
You like sew little messages in the clothes
I
in that movie?
don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Somewhere there's a penis on this garment.
What? I know. Okay.
If somebody knows what I'm talking about.
I hope so.
Just like when I talk about Saturn, somebody understands me.
I've got something to look up now on the internet. That's going to be a fun Google later.
Phantom penis.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It'll just be
Oh, Phantom Menace. Is that what? Is it a Star Wars thing?
no. Well, there's a movie called The Phantom Thread.
Uh-huh.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Okay.
A couple years ago. I guess he would like sew notes or something into the fabric, and I just said, when you print your NaNoWriMo shirt,
I
you
gotcha.
can have a phantom penis.
I gotcha. Okay. Integrated into the design.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. I'm catching up now. It just took me a minute. All right. So that's NaNoWriMo. What else? Oh, do we need to? You feel like talking about your podcast vidcast, or we want to save that for another day?
We're I'm working on it.
Okay.
We're just working on.
Yeah.
I guess I'm working on what its structure should be.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a little more put together than this, but like I'm not just going to be sitting here reading research or anything like that.
Gotcha.
And then we got to figure out a day.
Yeah. More segmenty. Yeah. Because I don't know what were we talking about. We were talking about Mondays. Like I guess after I teach on Monday mornings, so after class or whatever. I think we had talked about that.
I think we were talking about
And then we missed the first one.
streaming it, but then officially releasing it on Monday.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Yeah, streaming it prior. So we would stream it maybe the week before and then release it on Monday or something like that. Okay.
We just got to figure out what day that is.
Yeah. It's just another day. So yeah, that's Unpunished, which is a true crime paired with like mythology, demonology, religion, and the influence of ancient religions on crime.
Yeah. Because Jesus don't sanction that shit.
Yeah.
It's in the name of God, and it's not.
But Dionysus is definitely into it.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe we'll have some updates next week on that. Maybe we can look at trying to put that together.
I'm thinking it'd kind of be, we'll say we're doing it, and then 10 minutes later it'll be up.
Yeah.
But then it will come out on Monday.
Yeah. So, and then I guess we're back onto sort of a normal schedule. We don't have, we got some holiday stuff coming up, but we're not doing anything special for like Thanksgiving or Christmas other than just our regular shows. Halloween seemed to be like, that was a pretty fun thing to focus on since we got a lot of horror related books. So we're definitely going to do that again next year. Already have some ideas in the works for what we would do for the next Halloween weekend.
Possibly a different setting.
Yeah. And then we're definitely late with our chapter for Cardinal Point. But it's a big one and it's pretty good. We've been working on it, and I'm thinking we'll be uploading tonight. But since our readership is low now, I'm not super worried about it since we've got a lot of stuff that we're doing and trying out. So
yeah, and that's kind of NaNoWriMo this year for me is a way to force myself into a habit.
Yeah.
because we got so many things we were wanting to do.
Yeah, and I'm actually starting to get a little overwhelmed because you're chunking out a ton of stuff, and I'm like, oh, I got to catch up. So, so we'll see if TJ breaks me before the end of the month.
Well, you once said to me about something somebody shot. It's like, yeah, the only reason it's not getting done is because they're not doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like just a little bit every day.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to write 6,000 words a day. I just want to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sort of so I believe in that, but my strategy is different. So I like work on 6,000 things, but like one letter at a time. So all of my ancient writings are still going, as well as all of my new ideas as well. And so
that's something I've found it's good for me. I don't know about you, to like how I've been doing it. We're working on 3 things at a time. And it's kind of working out for me. Like when I hit a block on error correction, I just move on to Sam Yeager.
Yeah.
And once I hit the block on Sam Yeager, I just go on to Cardinal Point or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's going to work pretty well for me, just having other like multiple things to do.
Yeah. I've had a couple of serendipitous moments like that too, where I look at my whatever, you open up files and there's like sort of the recently previous projects or whatever, and you sort of look at the list, and I go in there fully intending to work on something specific, and then I'm like, oh, wait a second, and then I click a different thing and start writing on something else that I'm not supposed to be, and it feels a little bit naughty, and but it's inspiring in a way too. So I'm like, oh, I'm being bad, but I'm not really being bad, and so I'm cheating on another book with one of my other books, so it feels a little bit bad, but it ends up being a fun way to distract myself and knock some content out.
Are we the fundamentalist Mormons of writing? Like we're just fucking all these books and we keep wanting more?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what we are. There's no other way to answer that than yes.
Got a wife for 2 days, 2 weeks at a time, and you need another? Yes. Mm-hmm. That's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. And that's how you end up with 40 children living in a trailer.
Yep. And when the boys turn fucking age, you get rid of them. Because that's competition.
Mm-hmm. Wait, were we talking about Mormons?
Yeah, those fundies. That's
okay. Yeah. The ones that broke away from the church. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
From the mainstream church.
Yeah. No. And TJ's 100% Mormon, so he gets to talk about it.
Yeah. I don't think anybody gives a shit if anybody says anything about
nobody cares. Nobody cares about defending the honor of the Mormons, except for me.
It's them Scientologists who'll get you.
Yeah, that's true. Even mentioning it.
Only the Scientologists.
I can't believe you mentioned it in our stream. You brought up the S word. So yeah, apart from the weird religious connotations, that's exactly what we are. We're Mormon bookmakers.
Fundamentalist
Mormon bookmakers.
Yeah. You have a new one every
the Branch Davidians of bookmaking.
Well, that would mean I'd take your books and fuck them or something, wouldn't it?
I don't know, man.
At least with the fundies, it's kind of like we're all old guys. Let's get all these.
Yeah, I think that's you take all of my books and then you put them in a compound, and then the ATF firebombs the compound and burns all the books.
Joke's on them. They're loaded to the cloud.
Yeah, all right.
They can burn them.
Yeah. Can't defeat the Branch Davidian method of authorship. All right, we've gone down the rabbit hole. I think it's probably time to end this particular show.
Yeah, I think we've ran out of some kind of
ran out of religious illusions.
We're on to something else.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been Subluminous, and I'm JD.
I'm TJ.
And we will see you next Wednesday.
Yes. Or will we?
Are we taking a break?
Might we? Because of the thing?
Oh, yeah. We might be working. We will try and work. Yeah, I think we'll do it on the whatever. It might be late, so it'll either be Thursday or Wednesday, because we might have a job that we've got to work on, a video job. So, yeah. So if we don't see you Wednesday, we'll see you Thursday.
Yep.
Later.